What's up, fellow lords of gaming, and welcome back to the channel. So today what I want to do is talk to you about the SCUF Envision Pro and its interaction with MMORPGs, namely the one that I play the most, Black Desert Online. So when the controller was released, I think the majority of swell and anticipation for it was basically utilizing it inside of games like Modern Warfare 3 and other FPSs. However, I was looking at the controller, especially with the access to all of the buttons that it had, as a possibility for MMORPGs and the ability to basically have some of that grind exertion that comes, the exhaustion from grinding and using a mouse and keyboard, basically be alleviated by having access to a controller that has as many buttons as the SCUF Envision Pro controller does. So BDO is definitely available for you to basically use controllers. It's definitely 100% compatible with Microsoft controllers at writ large. I've used an Xbox Elite Series controller with BDO, and it's worked great. The only problem that I have is that even if you were to use like an Xbox Elite Series controller that has like the four rear map paddles and stuff like that, the game doesn't really recognize the additional buttons that are on a controller. So the same thing exists for the SCUF Envision Pro. It doesn't recognize the G keys. It doesn't recognize your side action buttons. It doesn't recognize, your rear four mappable buttons. It just doesn't. So you're going to have to play with some finagling basically to get those to be usable. Now, when you're playing the game, you go into settings, and then you can go down to your interface settings and then your gamepad. Underneath your gamepad options, you essentially have two ways to play the game. You can either play the game as it is with mouse and keyboard by just utilizing the gamepad, which has been there for the life of BDO realistically, or you have the ability to use the gamepad UI. If you use the gamepad UI, then what happens essentially is that you lose any functionality to remap buttons, and you basically gain the UI from the consoles to play the game. I'm not a big fan of the UI console for the games, nor the limitation of the buttons. Is it a fairly viable option to play with? Yes, it is. There's absolutely no problem whatsoever with learning that and getting it set up. It just doesn't feel the best to me. And this is going to largely depend on how you interact with the game, how you interact with your setup. Some people might play on a big screen TV instead of playing on a monitor. They might not have a setup where they're sitting at a desk, and they might be utilizing that in different ways. I am literally sitting, when I play my BDO, I'm sitting at a desk and I'm within probably 2 to 3 feet of my mouse and keyboard. So when I set up my SCUF Envision Pro controller, I'm really setting it up for the ability to interact with the grinding environment, not necessarily to be able to use it inside of the game world to do interactions with like the central market or my inventory management, although I'm not beholden from not doing that, right? So I'm going to show you what the UI gamepad, the gamepad UI looks like, just so that way you can see this is what it is, and it doesn't really stop you from doing anything. But I'm going to show you exactly some of the reasons why I don't like to use the gamepad UI as well. So when you set up the gamepad, use the game because you want to set up the gamepad UI, you end up with this user interface that, is by all intents purposes, it's serviceable. I can jump on my mouse and stuff like that, jump off my mouse. I have the ability to set up and kind of look at things that are a little bit differently inside of here. I can access a ring menu that basically allows me to have some quick actions inside of here, depending on what I set. You have action, you can basically touch the world and stuff like that inside the game. It's serviceable, right? It is highly serviceable. It is definitely there. I don't think any console player is going to tell you necessarily, hey, this was a totally bad option for us to have. It works, right? It's serviceable. Is it the thing that I wanted, right? No, it's not. And so I'm going to show you exactly why. So for instance, like with my Hashashin class setup, right? When I look at my Hashashin, some of the things that I wanted to be able to access, for instance, is that I have certain skills within inside my main and my awakening toolkit that I need to access on the hotbar, right? Well, what that means is that I need a way to have that quick access to those hotbar keys. So let's close this window. See, I can't even interact with my keyboard and interact with the controller. And this is another reason why, like, I'm sitting between the two, and it's not problematic for me to use one or the other, but I can't use both and just basically have that transition in and out. So it just makes things weird. But so for instance, right here, I don't have access to my quick slots, right? Basically only through the ring control do I have access to those. And that creates a little bit of a problem, right? Because I want to be able to access all my ring slots to basically do the things that I want them to do. I don't want to have to come in here and, then choose, this specific action to do these things, right? Like, because, hey, I want to cast All's Grace, but, this is the way I access All's Grace in the game. That wasn't something I wanted to do. I still wanted the ability to manipulate my inventory as well by doing, playing the game and doing it this way. Like, I can access my workers, my made list, and my processing and all this other stuff that's inside here. But this is easy, right? Like, these are things that makes the game a little bit easier. But when you get down to interacting and engaging with, your inventory, it ain't it. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, it's not it. Having the ability to interact with your guild and talk inside the guild chat, it just doesn't really pan out in terms of what I really wanted it to be able to do. So in that regards, I didn't want to use the gamepad UI. There's probably a litany of other reasons why I didn't want to use the gamepad UI, but these are the ones I'm going to stick to for the purposes of this video. So I'm going to go back in here for my settings again, and I'm going to change the interface settings, and I'm just going to change back to the gamepad and turn off use the gamepad UI. Now for me, utilizing just the gamepad with the normal setup and layout represented the best option for me. So immediately down on the bottom, you can see I have 3 actions set up to quick slot, and I can basically interact with those actions directly through my controller, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm not using the 1 and 2 keys. I'm basically using controllers that I have mapped on my buttons. And so I have all of that there. I'm still able to interact with everything that I want to do inside of here. You can see that I'm also able to open up my inventory menu, for instance, my quest options, my processing, the map of the world, and I'm able to navigate the map of the world fairly easily. I'm also able to access the Black Spirit and not have any problems with that, while still having access to a litany of other things that I can basically do with grind. Setting up my character for play basically makes things a little bit easier for me. You know what I mean? Like, I can basically do that grind. And if at any point in time, like for instance, I'm done with my grind session after an hour or so, and then I need to make some kind of changes because I need to come over to my mount, for instance, and I need to drop off items inside of my mount basically, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to drop off all of, my 100 and something 10,000 items into inventory, then I can do that easily, and I can switch back and forth between the keyboard and mouse. It makes it a whole lot easier. So let me show you something real quickly to start this off. Basically, when you play the game for Black Desert and you actually access the settings, you're gonna have a couple of things that are basically available to you or are defaulted. Number one, and there's going to be actions that you're going to need for every character: your E, your Q, your E, your F, your Z, X, and your C keys. All those situated around, and your shift keys situated around your WASD keys for your movement. You're going to need access to those. Now the game automatically ascribes those to the E, F, and Q key, E, F, and left mouse button keys to the action keys on your controller. So if you were using an Xbox controller, it's your X, A, Y, and B layout, and if you were using PlayStation, square, triangle, circle, those kind of things inside of there, that's what it's doing. So these are what the actions typically are mapped to inside of your controller. These all can be changed inside of the IQ software for what you needed to do, right? So for instance, if I pulled up, did I close IQ? I did. I closed IQ. So if I wanted to, I can pull up the IQ software right here and bring it to 4 at any time, and I can access the SCUF Envision controller here, and then you can see I have 2 options. I have the mappings option, which basically is available to me when I have IQ loaded. So if you want to have up and running in the background, so if you want to have access to all of your buttons, side X and the G keys and stuff like that, then make sure that you have IQ running in the background, and that's your mapping settings. If you don't have IQ running, then you're going to basically only be accessing the YB the rear 4 paddles and the side axe buttons on here, and those are only going to enable you to do like remaps of buttons. So you'll be able to remap like Y, X, A, and B. You won't have the full options to remap keys inside of here like you do if you have the SCUF Envision the IQ software running. I know how people feel about IQ. I'm not a fan of freaking IQ either. You know, it goes in and out from working. When it's working, it's fine. When it's not working, it's the most pain in the ass that you probably ever do, right? So essentially, you can see here what I have my gamepad set up for. Across the G keys, I basically have inventory, quest, processing, and mapping functions set up, the map and the Black Spirit. And if you were to look down here at what those specifically do, I have each of those mapped to a keystroke, meaning in Black Desert, in order for me to pull up my inventory, it's the I key. You can see the quest O, and then the processing L, mapping M, and then the Black Spirit is the little comma, right? So essentially that's what I'm doing. Now my Y, B, and X, or my action buttons, I have those remapped, for instance. So for instance, my Y key is remapped to the side axe control button. My B key is remapped to the left rear paddle, and then I have the X button remapped to the right rear paddle, the bigger paddle. And then my quick slots are basically set up for rear paddle options as well, and then the other side axe button. Now, one of the problems with BDO, as I said earlier, is that when you're opening up that settings option, it'd be great if, you know, BDO was able to recognize all of the interfaces that you had for your gamepad, because then I could just come inside, I can just go inside the settings menu, and then I could literally assign those keys directly here for options, and it would be easy to deal with. But like I said, it doesn't recognize all of them, so then there has to be some remapping that you have to do. So specifically here, you can see like A, X, Y, and B are set up as like special actions, and jump and then main attack buttons here. I have to almost leave those as A, X, and Y, which almost eliminates 4 keys from me being able to use, because I have to remap those keys onto my SCUF Envision Pro's rear 4 paddles. So for instance, that's what I was telling you about here. A, X, Y, and B are sitting here, but so they're sitting and they're not able for me to use for other actions because I have to remap those actions here. Now, could I, you know, change this? Probably when I've done it before, where I've changed those from just being remaps, what I end up with was issues. Like for some reason, certain actions in the game didn't seem to work. Like my WASD keys didn't seem mapped correctly here, and it could be something that's to do with the IQ software more than it is BDO. But this is what I found to work. I'm still playing around with it, and what I really want to be able to show you guys is that you're able to do these things. You have options available to you, so it's available there, as I said. So I'm also able to remap some of the keys that are here directly in the game, because the game does recognize the D-pad, for instance, right? So for instance, my D-pad up is how I interact with NPCs and actions in the world. My left and right are how I call in my maiden butlers or call my mount. My D-pad down, those are actions that I all have mapped to specific functions within inside the window, and you can see those here specifically, right? So for instance, D-pad down is how I interact with my alchemy stone, so that way I can just pull that up and I can automatically just go and just reuse my alchemy stone. I don't really need to do that because I can auto use the alchemy stone, but it's just something that I don't like to just auto use alchemy stones all the time while I'm grinding. Not that it's necessarily that important either, right? So then you have all those interfaces that you're basically able to set. It's a really good option basically for players who know that they're going to be engaging in these long grind heavy sessions with these type of Korean MMOs, and you just want the ability to just sit back, relax, and kind of not feel like you're hunched over, not feel like, you know, you're wearing out your fingers by, you know, being engaged with the mouse and keyboard. I don't have large hands, but my hands are, I guess, maybe bigger than normal. So regardless of whatever mouse I get, I always feel like I'm like in claw mode with my grip, and so therefore, like, a controller tends to help me alleviate the pressure that I'm feeling on, you know, my pinky and my ring finger there. So it's an option basically for you. And I just wanted to give you guys a review of my option and let you know how I interact in the game. I'm usually playing this way, switching between mouse and keyboard and a controller. Usually if I'm grinding, I'm doing that. But if I'm doing something as simple as interacting with the menus and so forth, then I'm probably using mouse and keyboard. But you might not never notice that, like, because this is me interacting with the map world or the map with the controller, right? This is me interacting with my my processing menu through the controller, my quest and so forth, or my even something as simple as my inventory. So I don't know, it's up to you. Basically you decide how you want to play the game. As I bring you more videos, I want to basically give you guys options for why you might want to purchase a controller like the SCUF Envision. Hey, I used to use like MMO type mice where I had, you know, all the 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 all the way to 12 numbers, so that way, you know, when I'm using the quick slots, then I have access to all of those spells because I'm playing targeting MMOs. But I needed something different for BDO, and this basically helped me to basically still be able to grind without taking my fingers off of that, you know, right thumbstick, and still being able to make my turns and stuff and still have actionable plays inside the game. It just feels very, very fluid to me. I'm genuinely happy with what I've got. I just wish that, you know, like I said, that BDO recognized some of the you know, other controllers, or there was a way for me to engage with the game so that way I could recognize some of the other controls. And there may be, and if you have some solutions and so forth like that, please leave it in the comment section below. I know that this conversation has died down and it kind of rears its head sometimes inside the community chat, but it was one of the things I wanted to put forward to you guys is, hey, SCUF Envision Pro is really good controller overall, period. It doesn't have Hall effect buttons and stuff, so there's going to probably be some drift at some point in my controller and I'll have to replace it. But it's doing what I needed to do inside BDO and making the gameplay even more fun for me, and it's made the you know, made the grinding experience a little bit more fun than having to press down on the mouse and keyboard all the time. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Until next time, peace.
Wow.